And welcome in to the Week 2 waiver episode of the Fantasy 4-Pack. I'm your host, Ian Power, joined as always by Matt Vitale, and Frankie Santiago is here with us in spirit today. He is working a double, so he will not be joining us.
Yeah, not as always by Frankie Santiago.
Yes, Frankie Santiago's availability is questionable at this point. You know, he's getting slapped with that game time decision tag, I think, for the next couple podcasts.
He's a stash in deep leagues.
Speaking of availability being questionable, this was a terrible week for injuries.
Oof.
Yeah, like half the league got injured. The first two picks in most fantasy drafts are going to be missing at least 4 weeks, and that's on the bright side because one of them is going to be missing significantly more than 4 weeks. Do you want to just get right into the news here?
Yeah, let's just jump right into this big basket of suck.
Okay, so I'm going to open with the worst news of the day. The number 2 pick in most fantasy drafts, Saquon Barkley, tore his ACL, out for the season. There's not really any replacing this guy. His handcuffs are garbage. I don't want either of them. I don't have either of them on our list here of top waiver ads of the week.
Yeah,
I think that this loss is a massive blow to fantasy owners who drafted him. You know, because so for example, I lost him this week. I'm lucky enough to have Austin Eckler and Jonathan Taylor behind him, so the loss is mitigated for my team. But not everyone is lucky enough to have that running back core behind him. Likely, if you lost Saquon Barkley, you've got like one good running back left in your team, and then you're trying to patch that hole.
Yeah, like this is a big shot, and this is why our draft strategy if you were kind of against our draft strategy of running back hard, get 3 in your first 4 rounds. If you're not someone to do that, if you're someone who went, you know, if everyone else went running back heavy, you went Saquon into maybe Godwin and Kenny Golladay, you are just full panic mode because you just
Godwin cleared the concussion protocol, so he's at least back.
Yeah, but I mean, think about your week 2 line. Is 2 of those guys didn't play, and one just went down for the season. So
yeah, that's
so even if you're buying a cheaper, you know, if you're paying a little bit more for that running back, this is why you do it because injuries are going to happen. So first round picks go down just like everyone else, and you got to be ready to be water and flow with it.
I saw a lot of it on Twitter though. I mean, even with first round picks going down like everyone else, this is like the worst week of injuries that I've seen in maybe my entire time playing fantasy football, and I've been playing for a little over a decade. I don't remember another single week of fantasy football where you saw this amount of attrition. So maybe the season just given it to us all at once.
Yeah, I remember the Jamal Charles season when he went down, one of his last good seasons. That was a pretty bad season overall, but nothing like this in a week 2. I mean, I just kind of came to on Sunday, and it felt like the bombshells were falling around me because I luckily danced through the raindrops on that one with most of my guys staying healthy. I mean, I still got AJ Brown who's banged up, but I'll take that
up at this point.
I'll take banged up over what everyone else is dealing with. So. Yeah, this is the reason you want to go deep. Even if you're like, I got that guy on my bench, or maybe I should just trade him away and try and get that piece. Hold it for a couple of weeks. Let the mortars fall and figure out who needs that guy, and then you can sell him for, a value.
As someone who made a trade this week and shipped away a running back and now could use that running back, I still don't regret my decision to send Zach Moss away and get Deontay Johnson back. But for the most part, yes, you do want to avoid making any too blockbustery of trades in the first couple of weeks because you want to try and weather the storm a little bit and see who's going to go down before you start shipping away your depth.
Yeah, it's kind of a basketball approach. Shorten the bench at the end of the season.
All right, let's jump into the injury news. So we already touched on Barkley. You're not replacing him with anyone. Don't get baited into, even if the Giants sign Freeman, don't go out there and grab him. You don't want any running backs from either New York team. I could just say New York because all of their running backs suck now.
Yeah, I mean, we saw, if you were not playing fantasy last season, Wayne Gallman was a ghost. Like he proved that he barely deserves to be on. I think
he had one good week.
Yeah, he definitely. I remember he had a week where he kind of tricked you and be like, "Hey, maybe I can do this." But with how bad their offensive line looked against Pittsburgh, and then with the quality of running backs they have behind them, this isn't like Cleveland, where they've got Kareem Hunt waiting in the wings. This is
one of the worst handcuff situations in the league.
There's a reason why, even though Saquon's so valuable, no one drafts his handcuffed.
Yeah, I mean that's just going back to talking about how not all handcuffs are created equal, and that's why it's not just a good idea to go out there and blind grab handcuffs. You only want to target the handcuffs that have value. And I pulled up Wayne Gallman's stats from last year. He had one game where he had 18 carries for 63 yards and a touchdown, and then 7 targets, 6 receptions, 55 yards and a touchdown. But 18 for 63, that's a pedestrian 3.5 on the ground. It doesn't matter. Like the Giants O-line is bad, and they're probably going to sign someone else or just be splitting carries from here on out. There's no one you can trust in this backfield. Let's see. Who do we want to tackle next? I guess we'll just go to the other high pick. CMC, unfortunately, he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. It didn't sound like he was going to be out that long at first. And then, the news officially came out that he's going to miss more time. It's a high ankle sprain, so those are notoriously finicky and tricky to deal with. He's another one who I'm very worried about because at least while he's coming back, we saw this a little last year with Saquon Barkley. We talked about this last week in terms of Michael Thomas with the whole high ankle sprains can sideline you longer than the actual injury time. He's someone who, if I'm a CMC owner right now, I probably lost this week. I'm trying to trade CMC, probably to get running backs who are actually going to start. I'm probably trying to ship CMC to a team who is, convinced they're playoff bound and just let someone else deal with that headache because he's going to miss at least 4 weeks, and then he's going to miss some more time after that, but he's going to be on the field. He's going to come back. He's going to play for you, but it's going to be lackluster play. You're not going to get CMC. You're going to get like 60% of CMC.
Yeah, with how much this guy's play is predicated on his, his cuts, his elusiveness. I hate that he got this injury. I mean, he's at least going to play, so I'll take that over Saquon. But man, he's going to be reduced. So if I'm someone with CMC. If you can't ship them out now, watch out for those guys. If someone's having a good start to their season and they're coming out, and when CMC's looking to come back in week 6 or something like that, and they're trying to trade for them, then I would make sure you drive up that price because you held on to him for those weeks he was out.
Sure.
If you sell him now, you got to sell him at a bargain because you're going to be putting that just dud on someone's bench.
The upside to selling him now, though, too, is that he still is Christian McCaffrey. He still has that name value. If you can sell him to someone who understands that, but isn't really worried about the ankle, you can probably still get some really nice pieces back for him.
Oh yeah.
So it's definitely something that CMC owners are going to have to consider. If not this week, then in the coming weeks. Another fairly impactful injury. Cortland Sutton, he's going to be missing some time, or sometimes he's out for the season. Yeah, he's going to be missing some time, some really big time. It sucks because he was a guy I was really excited to see what he was going to do. I think this sets the stage for Jerry Jeudy to be very interesting and Noah Fant to be very interesting. I'm happy if I manage to get one of them.
Yeah. For me, Jeudy was a guy I was kind of targeting late, but I just have that stigma about fantasy rookie wide receivers and just how low percentage they are at panning out. But he just looks like he is an NFL receiver already. He feels like he is that polished. So I'm not too worried about him. I think this is a huge bump to him and Noah Fant. So yeah, if you've got them, hold them. Or if somebody else is not as high on them, they're anti-rookie like I was, go send him a flyer. See if you can steal Jeudy before the production really starts hitting.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I hate this for Cortland Sutton. He was one of my favorite guys looking into this year to see what he can do.
You hate it whenever anyone gets injured, but especially if they were a player that you believed in.
Yeah, especially some young talent you wanted to see break out.
Speaking of Drew Lock is also hurt. So if you do go out and, I mean, Jeff Driscoll looked okay, but he's still Jeff Driscoll. So if you are trying to go out and, buy one of those Broncos options that still remain, just keep in mind you may want to bench them for a week or two, at least until we see if Jeff Driscoll is actually going to be able to support them. Worst case scenario, I think you're benching him until Drew Lock comes back. But, that's kind of what you're looking at there. Hopefully he comes back at 3 weeks rather than 5 weeks. That's all I got to say. Because Locke is another guy who looked really good. Paris Campbell, in undetermined amount of time that he's going to be missing, which another guy sucks. I liked him. He was someone who I was high on coming into the year. It seemed like Phillip Rivers agreed. Phillip Rivers was, hyper targeting this guy after he went down. The Colts just completely flipped the script and we're like, what if we gave Jonathan Taylor 47 carries this week? Like, Paris Campbell went down and then Jonathan Taylor almost had 20 carries in the first half of football. He had 11 carries through the first quarter. Like, you could tell that that injury really affected their game plan that week. So
yeah,
it sucks to see him go down. He was a very exciting player. He's someone who I'm just, you're not getting anything for him, and I don't want to drop him because it's not guaranteed he's missing the year. I'm probably just throwing him in my IR slot if you have one, and just hoping he comes back.
Yeah. If he comes back and can be near 100%, he could be a guy that really helps you down the backstretch.
Yeah. Hopefully they give him the time that he needs to rest, and he gets to come back and be, all full strength, guns blazing, and can help you win some fantasy weeks later on in the year. Raheem Mostert and Tevin Coleman are both out. Raheem Mostert sprained MCL. He at least gave fantasy managers a very good game before he went out. Massive 80-yard touchdown. He was looking great. I don't really care that Tevin Coleman's hurt. Tevin Coleman looked terrible. But Raheem Mostert does kind of suck. I'm holding on to him if he's down. I'm not really excited for any 49ers running backs behind him. I feel like they're someone who might go out and sign Devonta Freeman. If they do, Devonta Freeman's probably the guy moving forward. So, tread lightly if you're trying to go pick up Jerick McKinnon because he had 3 carries for 77 yards. He could be good, but he's also fragile.
Yeah, and he's also been their third running back. And on top of that, I mean, it's not the offense that got affected, but they just lost their 2 studs on defense.
And they lost Jimmy.
Yeah. San Francisco is going to be garbage.
They're decimated by injuries right now.
Yeah, they're going to go back to classic pre-Jimmy Niners. Like, this is going to be bad.
Yeah, it makes you wonder how good they can be without George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Raheem Mostert, Tevin Coleman, Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, their entire offense is gone.
Yeah, the entire team.
So, yeah, I mean, if you get Jerick McKinnon, great, but I don't think he's going to be a major factor because I expect that he's either going to get hurt or they're going to sign someone else. And like you said, that offense is going to be in rough straits.
Yeah, they're going to be rough shapes on both sides of the ball. I want nothing to do with San Fran at this point.
Yeah, their defense is probably droppable.
Yeah.
And then some more minor injuries. Will Fuller and Devontae Adams both came up with hammies this week. Will Fuller returned to the game. Devontae Adams did not, but the Packers are saying it's minor. They're both guys who I'm going to monitor throughout the week. I'd be surprised if they miss more than a week, though, because, obviously, like I said, Fuller came back into the game, and the Packers are downplaying Adams, so there's someone there. I doubt either of them are going to practice much this week, but they're probably going to be good to go. Good to go this coming week. Those are most of the big fantasy relevant injuries. Are there any that I'm just completely overlooking that you think are big enough that we need to mention?
No, those are probably the biggest ones. Other than that, I've seen some little minor ticky-tack ones that either don't affect fantasy too much or don't bear really digging into. These are the ones that we really want to talk about just because it's
I guess one injury that's worth keeping an eye on just because he looked so good, and for some reason the Chargers are saying that it's still Tyrod Taylor's job if he comes back. A guy they apparently have tons of loyalty to, despite having just signed him.
Yeah.
Tyrod Taylor did miss the Chiefs game with a chest injury. They were like undisclosed basically throughout the week. Must have happened bruised his ribs trying to put his cleats on or something, like fell over and hit a bench or something like that.
I mean, it was bad enough he had to go to the hospital. So I mean, they didn't really disclose what it was, but chest injury and hospitalization not the greatest. But
I like to think he just walked into a door really hard or something.
Yeah.
But they're saying that Tyrod Taylor is going to get the job back if he's good to go. I don't understand why, because Herbert looked good, like objectively good, and the offense seemed to perform much better with him. So he's someone who the running backs seem to be good one way or the other. So I'm not really worried from their perspective. But if you're a Mike Williams or a Keenan Allen owner, or Hunter Henry, you're rooting for Justin Herbert to be out there because the offense as a whole seemed to function better with him under center. So no one's starting Justin Herbert, but definitely something to keep an eye on if you own Chargers weapons, because the weapons will be negatively affected if Tyrod comes back out.
Yeah, like I said, at the end of the day, I just think this is maybe they know that Herbert, they had to run him out there, so they did.
Sure.
And I think they're just adopting the school of we're going to sit our rookie and let him learn. So,
okay. All right, you want to do a little 3 and out and then get into some waiver claims?
let's do it.
All right, I'll go through mine first, and then I'll kick it over to you. So I've got some running back and running quarterback focused 3 and outs this week. My first one is that I hate all Tampa Bay running backs, and I don't trust them. Obviously, we saw Ronald Jones get the lion's share of the work week 1. Ronald Jones came out there as a starter this week, put the ball on the ground, and it was Leonard Fournette's job from that point out. What fantasy owners need to understand is that this is more like Carolina's going to be a next man or a flowchart defense. They're going to be this defense where it doesn't matter who the team is that's playing them. You just start running backs against Carolina because they're terrible. Leonard Fournette had a great day against what should be the worst running back defense in the league. Ronald Jones didn't look bad before he got pulled from the game. This could easily just be a situation of Bruce Arians not having the patience for fumbling and benching him to be like, this is what happens when you fumble. And then they're just going to start him again next week. You can't start either running back with confidence, at least yet. Give this situation, if you can. Some fantasy owners can't do this. They're going to have to start one or the other. But if you can, give this situation more time to solidify. And just let them do whatever on your bench, or if you're trying to go get running backs, maybe try and buy one of these guys for cheap because that situation is so topsy turvy, and then just because I do believe one of them is going to take the job at some point this year. I just don't feel comfortable deciding which one it is. I don't want either of them. I'll let other people have them. I'm not starting them if they're on my team. And then to a backfield that I like a lot more, Los Angeles Chargers running backs are awesome, and I love them. I was telling I drafted Joshua Kelly in our rookie draft in Dynasty. I've been shouting about him all summer. I told people to stash him. I talked about Los Angeles running backs last week. I'm just going right back to the well with this one. Lynn is showing us what he wants to do with his running backs, and it's use both of them a lot. They are the most productive fantasy options on that team by far. Both of them are. Throughout 2 weeks, both of them have been startable running backs. You've been getting good fantasy performances despite them splitting time, and this isn't something new. We've seen the Chargers do this before. They did it literally last year with Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler. If they're going to use their running backs like this and keep finding creative ways to get both of them a ton of touches per game, I'm in. They're both talented enough to make do with the touches they're getting. Eckler is still getting a ton of carries too, so it's not like Kelly is going to destroy Eckler's value, and we know that Eckler is capable of performing, without carries at all. So even if Kelly does take all of the carries, I'm not worried about this at all. Start both of them with confidence. If Kelly's still out there, you're going to want to pick him up. We're going to mention him in our waiver claims later. If there's a Kelly owner that's just benching right now, maybe try and go get him for cheap, because he could be a sneaky waiver option for you, or a sneaky flex option for you at running back for the rest of the year, I think. And then my final take for 3 and out this week, Oh my God, Kyler Murray is so good at football. He is so fun to watch, dude. Like just getting to watch him, make these amazing throws or have these like crazy like he looks like he should be falling over while he's running, but his balance is just so amazing that he is just bobbing and weaving. He is making defenders miss. I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that Russell Wilson is just ripping the cover off the ball right now in Seattle and just throwing for 1,700 touchdowns a game, I would say that Kyler looks like he looks like he should at least be in the conversation for MVP at this point. Like he's doing everything at the quarterback position. He is he's sliding, he's protecting himself, so he's not opening himself up to big hits like you fear for these running quarterbacks. And I think the biggest thing with Kyler that differentiates him from someone like Lamar Jackson or like running quarterbacks of the past like Cam Newton or Michael Vick, he is a throwing quarterback first who can run. He's closer to Russell Wilson than he is to Lamar Jackson because while he does accumulate a lot of rushing touchdowns and a lot of rushing yards, he is a throw first quarterback. He seems, with the exception of with the interception in Washington, that's still going to happen because he's young. He seems to have great decision making. He has great weapons. He has a great arm, very accurate. I'm excited to see what this kid can do this year.
Yeah, like I said, just watching some of the highlights, it looked like he was playing, college ball where he was just zigging and zagging through.
Oh yeah, no, it's really fun.
Yeah, he's definitely going to be a guy. He's going to be like a quality running back where you just, when he's playing a bad team, unleash him and he's going to just produce.
Oh yeah. All right, run us through your three and out, Vitaly.
Oh, I was gonna start with a running back I love, but you talking about a quarterback, I'm gonna talk about a quarterback. Mainly because I did get a little flack from the certain hosts and certain producers on this show when I released my quarterback rankings of Patrick Mahomes first and then Mr. Rogers second. Talking about the return of the old guard. We are seeing that a little bit, but just Rodgers' revenge tour. He is looking like classic Rodgers. Just, it doesn't matter who's out there. He's making everyone fantasy viable, which we'll be talking about in our waiver wire section. Devontae Adams, he made him the number one wide receiver just by miles in week 1. Week 2, he just carved up and just sliced and diced Detroit. He's pulling a vintage Brady when we signed Garoppolo, and he is showing the team that he hates what they did and hates that they don't believe in him. So he's showing them on the field, which I think is the exact way to do it. I think it could end up biting Green Bay in the ass. I mean, he still got it. They still got him until 2023, so it's not like he's going anywhere next season. But he's a guy I could see going to finish his career in another team if he is that unhappy with them signing another guy. But if you were skeptical, putting Rodgers down in the 12th spot for QBs, we're being reminded that Rodgers is still Rodgers. He was just banged up and he had other situations going on. When Rodgers has an offense, when Rodgers is given a coach that wants to use him like the elite quarterback he is, he goes back to being the elite quarterback that he is. So, yeah, if you were lucky enough to get him in late in your drafts, hats off to you.
I will say this also for your Rodgers take. I'm looking at this. There is not a matchup on Rodgers' schedule that I'm scared of. I mean, he's got New Orleans, Atlanta, then a bye week, then Tampa Bay, Houston, Minnesota, San Francisco, Jacksonville, Indianapolis, Chicago, Philadelphia, Detroit, Carolina, and then he closes. So I guess maybe week 16 when he faces the Titans.
Yeah, like only ones I'm even slight titter in there is the Titans a little bit and Chicago, but I mean San Fran was supposed to be scary. They're all injured.
Yeah, he's got a real nice schedule, and like he's got a nice schedule versus a lot of teams that like to throw the ball, so he should be in a lot of shootouts this year.
Yeah, like I said, I'm all in on that guy. If he got drafted late by somebody and they maybe he's their second quarterback and they're losing or they just lost a running back this week or a valuable player. Go send him a flyer. See if you can get Rodgers off him and be like, no, it's just a couple flash games. Devontae's hurt. What happened last year when Devontae went down. You could probably snipe him off a team for relatively cheap due to the lack of value for quarterbacks. But jumping over to a running back I love, Mr. Miles Sanders. I am so happy to be on the right side of this one, at least to start, because everyone, all season, people wanted to be on this kid. They loved his talent. And they loved the lack of weapons surrounding him in that backfield. They shipped everyone out. They just kept Boston Scott. He was out for week 1, and people were ready, like, oh, they're going to sign a guy. They don't use the running back that much. Doug Peterson's never given a running back, except for him, that many carries. Week 1, 20 carries, 7 targets. He's 5 yards off 100 on the ground. Like, he looks like they want to make him the focal point of this offense. It's going to be him, and it's going to be Ertz. And then the wide receivers are just the third option. I mean, these injuries are helping him. Boston Scott's down. He is going to feast. And when he's getting a matchup that's, not against the Rams, which, once again, another top defense that people are kind of shading on. And, I mean, when you have 2 of the best players, it's going to make things tough. So him showing out against a front 7 that includes Aaron Donald, I'm all in on this kid. I think he should easily finish as an RB1, barring injury. And then third, just to bring it back to the negative, because I was Captain Negative last week, Mark Ingram. If you look at his stat line, you look at what he gave you for points, you're not too mad, but when you get out carried by Gus Edwards,
that's the way he got him.
In a blowout, like
Gus Bus.
We were talking pre-show. I think he's the new Trent Richardson. He's got a pretty name on a pretty team, or Trent Richardson wasn't on a pretty team, but like he is a pretty face on a pretty team that is just the hype. But yet, when they're blowing people out and their running back should be just running all over people, they're using Gus. They're using JK. Maybe they throw a couple his way. He's not getting the valuable carries. So basically, if you own him, you're just begging that he gets you a touchdown. He's still producing with his carries. He got 6.5 on the ground, but if he's only getting 10 or 9, that's 60 yards if he can maintain that. And 60 yards and a touchdown, that's what you're begging for. So when his ceiling is that, I am all the way out. Like, for me, he is a sell. If you can find somebody who just lost Saquon, if you can find somebody who's down a running back who's basically got the blinders on for what he's been doing this year, sell him now, or if you want to gamble, hope that he does get used in a game next week and he can pop, then you can have some kind of value. Sell him to one of the guys that needs a running back. Get him off your team. Like, I screamed about it last week about how much I hate committees. And this was one where it was supposed to be a very valuable committee because of how much they run. And Dobbins is not looking like they got what we wanted. Mark Ingram isn't, I guess, maybe you go, now it's Gus Edwards. Like, who is it going to be? I don't want to play these games. And this was supposed to be a backfield we weren't supposed to be playing these games with. So,
and a reason to not like Ingram even more. Ingram's final stat line looked okay. He did score most of his points this week on a single run. He had a 30-yard touchdown run in the fourth quarter. That means that the rest of his carries, if you're keeping score at home, 8 for 25, or just over 3 yards a carry.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he was a guy I talked about a little bit last week where, he was on the DEFCON scale for me, and if he didn't perform this week, I was officially worried. I was moving him up as far as players I'm kind of scared to roster / start.
Mm-hmm.
I don't come away from this one with a warm fuzzy feeling. I'm with you. Get rid of this guy.
Yeah, like I said, if he at least lost carries to JK and it was him and JK splitting it, I would still be in because he can produce on the ground. But when it's a 3-headed monster,
and part of that 3-headed monster is Gus Bus.
Yeah, good on you, Gus Bus. 7 on the ground and only 10 carries. You produced, but
sure,
I'm not happy about that backfield.
Yeah, all right. If you are curious about what Frankie's 3 and out are, go contact him on Twitter. Ask him. Ask him to elaborate.
He loves late night tweets.
Yes, he will. He will love to talk to you later. But that'll do it for our 3 and out segment. Let's move on to the main course of the show, and let's get into waiver claims. This is a big week for him. So we're going to just sort of briefly. There's a lot of people this week, so we're going to be briefly touching on people. If you need a running backs, though, fortunately there is quite a few options out there this week. These are all guys where you're going to want to prioritize them accordingly, and we're going to tell you how to prioritize them. Be it if your league uses Fab budget or Fab bucks or just regular old waiver order. Hopefully you get at least one of these guys though if you had a big loss this week. So let's start off at QB. There's only 2 ads here. Gardner Minshew and Ryan Tannehill. Gardner Minshew is 19.3% owned. Ryan Tannehill 34% owned based on ESPN ownership. If you need a stream of the week for next week, at quarterback, you need to plug a streamer in because you lost Drew Lock or something. I don't know, or maybe you're just streaming quarterbacks and you got a crap matchup next week. I'd be happy starting either of these guys. I'd rather start Tannehill over Minshew, but they've both shown us to this point in the year that they can be counted on as a solid streaming option. Are you with me there? You would go Tannehill, Minshew?
Yeah, definitely in that order. I like Minshew, but his stats are a little inflated that he played, the Bengals.
Yeah.
Who I think are still down there. Like Burrow's going to need some time to mature. That whole team needs some time to mature. But for me, Tannehill, I think he looks legit. We were chatting about this one as well, that we feel like Adam Gase at this point is turning into King Midas, but the effect of turning things to gold is after you leave his team. He infects you with it, and once you go somewhere else, you flourish, i.e. somebody else we're going to be talking about in the wide receiver section.
No, Minshew hasn't played the Bengals. He plays the Bengals 2 weeks from now. He played the Colts and the Titans.
Oh, sorry about that. I was thinking Bengals Browns. I was thinking of another team that's not that great.
You were saying that, and I was like, yeah, no, wait, no, he hasn't played them yet. I had to go look it up. He plays them on the 4th, but he does get the Dolphins this week on Thursday, and then he gets the Bengals, and then he gets the Texans, and then he gets the Lions. So Minshew's got a pretty good.
Yeah, that's 4 games I'd be comfortable starting him.
Pretty good little schedule there.
Yeah, he's definitely a guy I want to pick out the bad matchups for him. I'm not as.
They start coming after the Lions.
Tannehill is more of a I can play him against a middle of the road defense and with some confidence if I don't have anything else.
Sure. Moving on to the running back position, we have 5 names for you. I'm going to list them in order of how I have them. We talked a little bit pre-show. It sounds like you're sort of in the same boat with me, but top waiver claim of the week for you, and this is at any position. If I have to use my number 1 waiver claim on someone, or if I have to, fire my fab budget at someone, I'm grabbing Joshua Kelly. No one is listening to me, as I said earlier. He's a guy who I haven't seen that many fantasy analysts shouting about, but only owned in 26.4% of leagues, so it is going up at least. It went up 14%. He should be owned in at least rostered in 100% of leagues. Unless you're in an 8 or a 10-man league where where you just don't start people because you don't have enough people in your league or something like that. But in 12-man leagues or in deep leagues, this guy should be on your team at the very least, if not getting weekly consideration for the flex spot. Following him, Darrell Henderson at 45% owned, so there's a chance he might not be out there, but if he is, he's who I like as my number 2 waiver claim this week. Mike Davis, 8% owned. Jerick McKinnon at 18.9%. And then, just for a dart throw, maybe he signs somewhere because of all the injuries. Devonta Freeman, who is currently 7.5% owned.
Yeah, like I said, we basically agreed on all these guys.
Yeah.
Kelly is the biggest surprise, definitely, for the ownership percentage. I think it might just be the Chargers are still.
Well, people don't like committees.
People don't like committees. People don't like it. It was like the stink on Kamara before. Before Kamara, people were ready to buy in on Kamara. He was the second guy. I don't want to pay that much for a running back on a secondary team.
Eckler had this same stink as a guy who believes in Eckler last year and owned Eckler in a lot of leagues last year. When Eckler was going off, it was all right. Well, what's going to happen when Melvin Gordon comes back? And then Melvin Gordon came back, and Eckler kept scoring, and they were like, yeah, but they're still in a committee. It's okay, they're both performing. Committees aren't always bad for football. If the coach wants to use both running backs heavily, they're good. So go out there, find Joshua Kelly. He's got a great matchup next week where he's playing Carolina. So you're going to be able to start him next week at the very least. And I personally believe that this what we're seeing right now with the Chargers is going to continue into the future.
Yep.
Do you have any other running backs that I left off that list that you wanna bring up?
Not really. Other than just talking about the Rams, and clearly it's a situation where you want the number 1. It's just gonna be tough to guess that, especially if all these guys come back to being healthy. You definitely want Darrell for right now, especially for week 3, but it's gonna be a tough one to guess. So if a clear number 1 emerges, that's who you want.
Yeah.
So you're basically gonna have to gamble in the start and pick a horse and hope that he wins. So if you missed out on Malcolm Brown last week, buy in on Daryl. Don't be shy about it because
this could be a situation where one of them is going to be startable on a week-to-week basis, and it's just it's old school Shanahanigans or Bellatrix, where it's just like I don't know who, but one of them is going to be good.
Yep.
Wide receiver. Our number one claim this week at wide receiver is actually two guys because they're both available in a lot of leagues and we like them equally. It's either Allen Lazard or MVS. The Packers are throwing a lot this year, and Allen Lazard and MVS are both getting volume. They're guys where Lazard's owned in 33% of leagues, MVS is owned in 16%. So I would try and grab one of the two of them this week if I need if I just lost Cortland Sutton. Though I want one of the two of those guys to plug in if I have to go find a wide receiver if I don't have depth on my bench. Following them, Russell Gage, 20% owned. It's looking like he is going to be a supportable part of that offense. It looks like the Falcons are going to be, at least in shootouts, throwing enough where he's going to reliably get volume. And if Julio or Calvin Ridley goes down, he goes right into people start wide receiver 3/wide receiver 2 contention.
Yep.
And then final on the list, and this guy should be available for everyone. So if you need a wide receiver, definitely look at this guy. Michael Pittman Jr., 2.5% owned. The Colts just lost Paris Campbell for, as we said before, an undisclosed amount of time. The injury is going to sideline him for a good chunk of the season, it sounds like, though. So Pittman Jr., drafted highly by the Colts. He's a talented rookie. T.Y. Hilton, honestly, if you watched that game, T.Y. Hilton did not look good. I mean, he dropped a wide open touchdown pass, 50-yard touchdown, would have made his day look much better. But even aside from that, he just didn't look like T.Y. Hilton out there. He looked kind of washed. I wouldn't be surprised to see Michael Pittman Jr. kind of step into the Paris Campbell role in this offense and start becoming a much more favored target of Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, he's a guy I liked, but I didn't like his position because I feel he felt like a clear number 3.
He was someone who we agreed before the season that he needed an injury to become relevant.
Yeah,
there is now an injury.
Yeah, he has all the physicals. He just wasn't going to get the target share that you wanted. But he's a big body guy, high profile coming out of college. I like everything about Pittman. I just didn't like the target share he's getting. And if Paris Campbell's out for an extended period, he could be just raking it. He could be, Michael. He could be like the Chargers and be raking in touchdowns with low reception yards.
Well, and the other thing to consider too is T.Y. Hilton isn't exactly a picture of health. He's not hurt yet, but it's not out of the realm of possibility that T.Y. Hilton goes down at some point. If you grab Pittman Jr. now, you've already got the number one in Indianapolis if/when T.Y. Hilton goes on IR. Just some honorable mentions at wide receiver. One of them we didn't put on there because he's on the Giants, and I don't really know if you can trust anyone in that offense right now. And one of them because he's owned in 68% of leagues, but if he's out there, he should absolutely be your number one. Robbie Anderson. Robbie Anderson should be, if you need a wide receiver, or even if you don't, out of everyone that we've mentioned so far today, I would use my number one claim on Robbie Anderson if he's available. He's probably not, because he's owned in the majority of leagues, but he looks legit. He looks like he just was another player cursed by King Midas. Just out there, everything he touches turns to garbage, because we were saying he stepped away from the Jets, went down to Carolina, and he's a whole new receiver down there. He is getting consistent usage. I like what I see. We've liked Robbie Anderson as a sleeper/breakout candidate for years. It looks like he finally is cashing in on that potential down there with Teddy Bridgewater in Carolina. So if he's available, he is the number one regardless of position. And then Golden Tate, 14% of leagues, he's probably out there. If you need a wide receiver and you miss on your guys, if you wake up tomorrow, or not tomorrow, actually tomorrow when this episode comes out. So if you wake up Wednesday and you missed on all of your wide receiver claims, Golden Tate might be still out there. He got 5 targets, caught all 5 of them, 47 yards. He's going to be involved. Sterling Shepard just got hurt in addition to Saquon Barkley. He's worth a dart throw.
Yeah, when just looking at it now, I think it's just the pattern we have to come to is that if you see something on the Jets that pops every once in a while, just has a couple of good games here and there, buy in on it in like Dynasty.
Yeah.
Because eventually it's going to pop and be really good. Or, if eventually Gase is gone, then maybe the whole Jets team is just fantasy gold. Like,
I mean, everyone likes Chris Herndon.
Sam Darnold was the number one overall pick for a reason. Like that whole team could just pop once he goes and they get like an offensive coordinator.
Yeah, maybe the Jets are just bad because of Adam Gase. That's a fair point.
Yeah,
I hate that man so much.
Yeah.
And then tight end, and this one's particularly It looks even worse after this week because of the game that Jonnu Smith had. But somehow Jonnu Smith is available in 38% of leagues. If you are a fantasy owner that currently is sitting there looking at him on your waiver wire, that shouldn't really be a question. He should at least be rostered. Jonnu Smith is a fantastic athletic tight end who is in an offense without really any receiving options right now because Corey Davis is terrible, A.J. Brown's hurt, and Adam Humphries is Adam Humphries. So go out and grab him if you need a tight end. He should not be available in 62% of leagues.
Yeah, remember, this is the guy that Bill Belichick said he's one of the best tight ends in the league.
Yeah.
And people just were like, oh, I don't know, Bill doesn't know tight ends. What are you talking about? He just had like 2 really great ones, and then one's a Hall of Famer.
And then just a deeper dive at tight end. If he's not available and you need a spot start this week, 2 guys that I'm keeping an eye on. One is Jordan Reed, and that's only if Kittle misses this week. If Kittle plays, I don't want Jordan Reed. And Mo Alley-Cox looked pretty good last week. We know that Phillip Rivers likes to use his tight ends. If Jack Doyle's going to miss more time, I haven't actually, because Jack Doyle is he's just not fantasy relevant to me, so I actually don't know how long he's out for. Let me look that up real fast. But if Jack Doyle is going to miss more time, I'm interested in starting Mo Alley-Cox, at least while there is no other tight end, in consideration in that offense.
Yeah, well, you pull that up. Now, is Jack Doyle not fantasy relevant because of his performance or because he's burned you 2 years in a row?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I saw a stat. I quote, I'm paraphrasing. I saw the stat on Twitter. I forget who tweeted it, but Jack Doyle games with 5+ targets and 100 yards, and it was 1. And then Mo Alley-Cox games with 5+ targets so 1 out of 30 for Jack Doyle. Sorry, Mo Alley-Cox games with 5+ targets and 100 yards, and it was 1 of 1. So I know it's small sample size and it's just a little bit of a joke at Jack Doyle's expense, but Mo Alley-Cox is a very large individual. He's skilled, and Phillip Rivers likes to lean on his tight. It's not ideal. He's obviously not someone that we're going to be like at the end of the year. Be like, wow, sure is a good thing you picked up Mo Alley-Cox, but he's someone who could steal you a week or two if Jack Doyle is going to be sidelined for even another couple weeks.
Yeah, he's basically he's like a lesser Goddard where
it does appear that Jack Doyle has, and also Doyle is just someone who just seems to collect injuries. Like, he has a knee and ankle right now. Last season it was like a kidney and a knee or something like that. I forget. He gets all the injuries. I wanted to believe in him for so long, but that's a different a discussion for a different day. It seems like from what I'm reading here that he is going to be someone who's day to day. So he if you're going after Mo Alley-Cox, you're going to have to pay attention to practices and see if Jack Doyle is declared active for this week. But if he's not, I'm fine starting him this week.
Yeah, like I was saying, he's just like a cheap Goddard where there's so many injuries. T.Y. Hilton's not looking good. They have to lean on a rookie if they want to really get production done.
Yeah.
So if he's going somewhere, we know that he likes his safety blankets, Eckler, and Hunter Henry, Antonio Gates. Like, he's liked all those guys for years.
Yeah.
So now it's just going to turn to Jonathan Taylor, Mo Alley-Cox, Hines. Like, we're seeing the same thing that we saw in
Phillip Rivers is a very old quarterback, and what's the saying about old dogs and tricks?
Yeah, something about a water bottle in his blanket. But no, like I said, I like Mo Alley. He could be a surprise.
I'm not counting on him for much either. Like, that's the nice thing is, like, if you're looking at starting Mo Alley-Cox, you're already kind of up shit's creek without a paddle.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, he's bad, just like whoever you're thinking of plugging in there. Best case scenario, he has a very nice week for you. And then for our can't miss streaming defenses of the week, We mentioned them last week in our breakdown episode where we talked about our defense stash, so they should already be on your team. But the Indianapolis Colts get the hapless New York Jets, who have no startable fantasy players, and they're terrible. So I'm prioritizing them if I need a spot start this week. Go out and get them Colts, and if you miss them, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers get the Broncos, who just lost their quarterback and number one wide receiver. So I am just fine starting the Buccaneers against the Broncos this week.
Yeah, and of course the Eagles, who get the Bengals at home. So I am ready for all of that because the Eagles are going to tear them apart. It's going to be just messy.
Yeah. So definitely go out and grab one of those three. I would prioritize them: Indianapolis, Tampa Bay, and then Philadelphia. That'll do it for us today. Join us on Thursday when we bring you Thursday. Join us on Thursday when we bring you I always get the shooting date versus the release date mixed up.
It's confusing.
Join us on Thursday when we bring you the first half of our weekly breakdown. And hopefully you guys get everyone you're looking for in waivers this week. Unless you're in my league, and then I hope that I get the guys that I'm looking for and you don't. Looking at you, Will.